Hey, sis. So I've been to Nairobi, I've been to Bangkok, and I've been to Mexico. And honestly, several places in between. Often with my girl Diamond um, and the Exodus Summit traveling crew, sometimes truly alone. And every single time someone asks me, isn't that scary? And every single time I say, the staying home is the scariest. Welcome back to the Deanda Factor. I'm Deanda, globetrotter, trusted house sitter, and absolutely evangelist for the life changing powers of travel. Today's episode is personal, it's practical, and it's for every Black woman who has looked at an international trip and thought, but is it safe for me? I know you're out there, sis. Let me acknowledge something first. The representation gap in mainstream travel content is real. Most travel influencer content does not center around Black women and their experience, which means we often lack the specific, practical, culturally, um, information we need to feel confident traveling the world. This episode, however, is a small piece of filling that gap. Nairobi was, for me, the most complex and profound traveling experience uh, in my life, really. And that was based off of the fact that I was doing it alone and I was doing it scared. You've heard me say this before, and it was true. I was doing it scared. I'd never been to Africa, that is. I'd never traveled that far solo. So I was doing it scared. I was doing it scared. But oh my God, the beauty is staggering. The Giraffe Center, the national park, the top of the Kenyatta International Convention Center, or I think the abbreviation is KICC. Yes. It's the sixth tallest building in Kenya. And um, I want to tell you the full story of it. It was really magnificent. I was just absolutely blown away by the people, the culture, the food. It was sobering and absolutely 100% worth it. It really was. And it's an experience that I did. I teetered on. I went back and forth. Should I do this? Am I up for this? Because I need to throw in that I was doing it while working a East Coast hours 9 to 5. And that part I felt was easy because that would be the familiar thing there. But it wasn't hard so much as it was being in a completely different environment and doing something that but it becoming new while doing it, if that makes any sense. But highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. So let's talk about Bangkok. Bangkok operates on a completely different frequency than Nairobi. Obviously, totally different country, Southeast Asia versus Africa. But Bangkok was spiritual. It's lush, it's affordable, and the people are genuinely warm. And again, I want to say that, the people were, warm in Nairobi as well, but it's just a different culture. I felt remarkably safe there as a solo traveler. The community of expats and long-term travelers, people who have moved there that I met, is so diverse and welcoming. It's one of the places I keep returning to in my, head and thoughts. And it's one of those places that I know I will visit, time and time again, just because it is welcoming and you can find your sweet spot there. You definitely can. Um, I am a part of the Exodus Summit community, which I will put the links in the description so that you can check it out. If you are a Black woman, you are welcome to um, look into that. And it almost expanded my experience in both places because what you can do in the Exodus Summit community is you put in where you're going. You will find at the very least one person who's like, I'm there. Once you hit the ground, look me up and we'll meet up and commune and get in community with one another. And that's what you do. That's exactly what you do. So let's move on to safety. Talking about safety practices is one of those things that people always ask. They always want to know, well, are you safe? Do you feel safe? Where, where is, where do you go? Who did you talk to? How did you do this? Blah, blah, blah. So here's my framework. Before you go, research the neighborhood. You're staying in, the neighborhoods you might be wanting to visit, not just the country, because the country overall has, I found that out, in Kenya, there are so many little nooks and crannies like there are in New York. You have the Bronx, you have, you have Queens, you have all these different little pockets of places. And some of them may not be, your thing, may not be your sweet spot. So you want to do your research, and you want to read accounts from Black women like myself, who've been there specifically to the areas that you're interested in visiting. Register with the U.S. Embassy. Download offline maps. That will also help and make you feel safe. Know your emergency numbers. I have a bad habit, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, in that I don't know a lot of people's numbers because I have my phone. But there are a couple of numbers that you might want to memorize and make sure that you know, just in case something happens to your phone. Have it written down maybe in some places, just in case. Your safety is your safety, okay? While you're there, share your itinerary with someone at home. I did that with two other people. One person who would be traveling and I would meet along the way, shared it with her, and couple of my family members. So I knew, people may not have known exactly the day that I stepped down, although Virgo, I put that in there. But they had a general idea. Oh, she's in Bangkok now. she's leaving, Nairobi on, Sunday, and she's arriving in Bangkok on Tuesday. So, letting someone know where you are, and check in regularly. Trust your instincts always, always, always. Keep a copy of your passport separate from the original. And since we have cards now, you have passport cards. If you have that, you can keep that in one place and keep your hard copy or book passport in another area. And I also had a copy of it on my Google Drive, just to be safe. And this one is a big one. Connect with locals. The best safety information I've ever gotten was, from local women who love where they live. And remember, one of the things that people forget is you take yourself everywhere you go, right? Meaning that don't put down the safety measures that you use in your, home state or home country daily. You want to use those and keep those instincts, front and center, front and center. And that becomes a part of your safety checklist, if you will. One of my favorite travel hacks is trusted house sitter, which I learned about from Stephanie Perry. And she's, the house sitter, trusted house sitter, actually, maven, just like the queen of that. So if you haven't already, again, I will put a link to Trusted House Sitters in the description, as well as a link to Stephanie Perry's YouTube site, so you can learn a little bit more from her. My travel partner and I, Diamond, built a trusted house sitter profile together. We partnered together. And it was, a way of traveling without worry of, cutting costs and worry of, oh my God, do I have enough to, pay for lodging here or there? You house sit for trusted house sitters, and there are other agencies or apps out there. But for trusted house sitters, what you do is you house sit for a homeowner who needs their pet. It's usually a pet. Sometimes it's a plant. Sometimes it's just, I want somebody in the house. Most times, I want to say probably 90%, maybe even a little bit more percent of the time, it's for a pet, be it cat or dog. I found or saw that once you get outside of the United States, you'll find that there are, other animals that's included in that, like chickens, goats, horses, even. And if that's your groove, go for it. But anyway, you care for pets, and your accommodation is free. It's fulfilled by staying there with the pet, and hence the name house sitting. But it's a fully furnished home. Sometimes, not all the time. In fact, I've never experienced this, but sometimes they even leave their car for you to use, depending on, the pet parent, if you will. And we're talking, sometimes it's, in, really interesting, explorable neighborhoods. I know it was for me. There are houses, apartments, depending on the area, because I've done them in New York City. I've done it in California, San Francisco. So, it's amazing. But what you get is you don't get, kind of thrown into this kind of touristy hotel, and it makes travel more affordable and authentic. You really get to get into the of living like a local, if you will. That's what you get. All right, I want to spend a minute talking about travel joy. And I don't know if there are enough words to talk about it in my case, but the way travel rewires you, um, it just kind of switches your brain to something that I don't even know. I don't know if I have all the words because, the what ends up happening is the humility that comes from realizing um, your way is not the only way of living. And the confidence you build when you navigate a place alone and figure things out, you know, because it does, get done. For me, it was, I'm a planner. So it was learning to and leaning into, oh, I need to pivot here from those plans and try it this way. The friendships that I gained, both local and fellow travelers, um, and being a Black woman, of course, people recognize that from the offset, because it's like not like you can take the color off, so you're always gonna, kind of get that, you're not from here. Kind of even in Africa, I did not look like, the average Kenyan. So, people were immediately asking me, where are you from? And once you say, New York or just United States, it's, antennas are up and wow, why did you choose here? And, just a conversation starter is what it is. Um, but the friendships I've made across the world, even the globe, I will say, with women I would never have met otherwise. Um, this gave me, I mean, it was just everything. It was everything. Because when you really, hear the stories, create the stories, you have the pictures to prove it. Um, it just, I don't know. It's so humbling, and it lets you know that while the world seems so large, it really isn't. There's so much that you can find in common with, your fellow man in a completely different country, and, people think, there's a huge language barrier, but believe me when I say I had no problems in any of those countries, not an inkling of a problem. I will say that in Nairobi, I was in the city center. So, in terms of where I stayed, when we went, exploring a bit, getting in the countryside, still there was not like major language barrier. We were able to communicate beautifully. All right, so let's move on to our sweet spot sparkle challenge for this week. I would like for you to drop your dream solo destination in the comments. Just one. You can put more than one, but all I'm asking for is one. Let's build a collective travel list and hold each other accountable to actually going and doing it scared. All right, sweeties. The world is yours. Go claim it. Subscribe. Share this with a friend who keeps saying she wants to travel. And I want you to just stay grateful, stay grounded, and stay in your sweet spot. I will see you in the next video. Bye.